Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday, and welcome to today's live conversation. I am Shawnta Jackson, author, leader, speaker, and my purpose in life is to help people to help themselves and others. And in life, I have many experiences, and I have met and I know a lot of different people. And today, I'm having a conversation with my friend Donyelle Brown, and Danielle is an entrepreneur. She is a philanthropist, and she's overall just a really great person. And our topic for today, and Danielle and I were talking about how nervous we were before this, but we got this.
Yes.
If anything, we're demonstrating how women are supporting women, how sisters are supporting sisters.
Yeah.
And a lot of people often are, we say, no new friends, and, keep your circle small. And in life, in order to prosper and in order to grow, I don't think that that's necessarily realistic. Yes, you have to realize the role that people play in your life. And if they're for you, if they're with you, or, they're different purposes. However, I don't follow the motto that, no new friends and keep your circle small. Of course, you don't tell everyone all your business, but I'm Shawnta Jackson, and I just wrote a journal, a book, The Journal of a Woman with Lived Experiences, a 21-day guided journal. And I kind of told all of my business a little bit, or my feelings. And so for today's conversation, I want to talk about resilience. And in one of my journal entries in my book, I talk about the power of storytelling, the power of owning your own story, and the power of resilience and what resilience means. So for me, resilience is when you go through something and it's not that you necessarily get over it, but you have been able to move. It's not moving on, it's moving with and moving through, and you come out a stronger person. And even at sometimes it's okay to be weak and you have your moments, but resilience is our ability to go through something and we begin to heal from it and we begin to learn from it. And then in us learning, I think it's also important for us to help other people and talk about, what we've gone through in life, and to help others, right? And then in addition to talking about resilience, we'll talk a little bit about faith and coping and passion. But then also we would like to switch the conversation. Danielle is also a licensed insurance agent in the state of Maryland. And we would like to talk about building generational wealth and what that means. And so I'll let Danielle lead on that, but I know we talked a little bit maybe about retirement planning, but I think it's also appropriate for this time, especially with COVID-19, for us to talk about, a little life planning and how we can build generational wealth through insurance and we can talk about wills and different things like that.
Yeah.
So Danielle, thank you so much for joining me today. And you look beautiful, by the way.
Oh, you're beautiful yourself. Thank you, Shawnta. How we even met was such a blessing. And I don't know if we have time quickly to share the story.
We do.
Girl.
So let me tell you about my day. So for everyone who's watching, Danielle and I, and so this is a live broadcast. And for those of you who will be watching this as a previously recorded broadcast, please know that the live chat feature will be disabled. However, if you are watching live, the live chat feature is enabled. And so Danielle, it was either September or October, October. So it was in October 2019, Danielle and I met. And I had a very bad day that day. I cried so hard that day that I actually felt God come down and hug me. That's how hard I was crying.
Amen.
I had my feelings were hurt. And then in addition to that, my cousin had passed away in July, and I didn't have the time to mourn and grieve with my family. My cousin lives in Las Vegas, and so I'm kind of in and out, and then I have these demands with work, and that day was just a really, really bad day for me. And like I said, I cried that day really, really hard. And I went on Instagram and I saw that Sarah Jakes Roberts and Touré Roberts were going to be in town and in Baltimore. And I said, okay. So now I'm starting to get messages throughout the day. I told you I already felt like I got comforted a little bit from a hug. And so when I saw that, I said, you know what? I'm going to Baltimore today. And I'm making it my business to go. Normally with large events, we want to find friends and someone to go with. I said, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go myself. And I didn't even get dressed up or anything. I just kind of put on a shirt and some jeans. I didn't worry about my hair. And I went to once I arrived at the venue in Baltimore. Good morning. We have Mr. Pope and Shawnta on, and Shawnta, I don't have you. And so Shawnta, she sells jewelry, and we'll bring you on.
Oh, beautiful. Yes.
So I'll introduce you to Shawnta, and so you all can.
Yes.
And so I'm parking, street parking at the meter, and there's this woman there. And this woman is your friend, Tina. And so there's this woman there, this stranger that I don't know. And she's like, hey, you look like you can write grants. Are you a grant writer?
Wow. That's Tina.
Yeah, are you a grant writer? And I was like, no. However, here's my card. I help people plan socially conscious initiatives and with strategy and evaluation, but I'm not necessarily a grant writer. Oh, okay, you know what? I want to introduce you to my friend Danielle. She's not here right now. And I was like, okay. And so I go into the venue and I say, I would like to purchase a ticket for one person. And the ticketing agent says, someone wants to bless you today. And here's a free ticket. They asked me to give this to you. And I was like, okay. So mind you, I'm crying earlier that day. I feel like I get my spiritual hug. And then I go on Instagram. I saw that Sarah Jake Roberts was in town and Touré Roberts, her husband. I see Tina. I park on street parking, met some straight, at the time, like, okay, some crazy lady randomly asked me if do I write grants? Okay. But we do exchange contact information, Tina and I. I go into the venue and I get this free ticket. And so then I go upstairs and the person taking the ticket says, you know what? I'm going to give you a better seat. Why don't you go down and I'll get you a seat at the front stage? And I'm like, all right, I hear you. I don't know, but I hear you and I'm getting it. So in addition to me sitting up front, then there's also messages that Sarah Jakes Roberts and Touré Roberts are saying that resonate with me. And so after the event, I go back and I'm rushing because my meter is expired and I'm hoping that I don't have a ticket or that my car is not towed.
Yeah.
We're pretty much downtown Baltimore. And guess who's there? Tina. And I was like, oh, hey. She's like, oh, my friend Danielle is here. And so I walk to your car. This is the street parking, everyone. It's night. Just so you know the setting. It's
late.
Maybe like around 9 p.m. We don't know each other. The women on the street in Baltimore. Right, at a parking meter. So I'm by myself. Don't forget that one. I'm solo. And so I walk to the car on the passenger side, and Danielle is in the driver's seat of her car, and Tina is standing outside. And then I'll let you take it from there.
So she comes over, and Tina's like, I have somebody for you to meet. And if anybody knows Tina, and most people know Tina, when it comes to me, Tina is very energetic. She's a blessing from the Lord. She's always, pretty much inspired me and been there with me. I mean, through many journeys, through modeling, through every facet of my life. And so that day when she was on the side of me and she came over, I just felt an immediate connection. I knew God was moving in that divine moment. We hugged, we cried. I believe we cried. We talked. she even told me about what she does. And I'm like, wow, well, I would like to know more about that. As you know, being a woman that is on certain platforms that, you know, most of us, you know, we're on these platforms now, but to be in business for yourself and to be a great entrepreneur and just, you know, who she is was just like a magnet. And so as we were talking, I started sharing a little bit about, you know, who I was, and I'd written a book. And, you know, I was like, can you help me? She was like, I guess. It was kind of like, let me get your card. And I was like, all right, and give me your card. And so just before we got on here,
wait, let's stop. I want to go back.
Yeah, because okay.
We skipped over the story. So at the time when I met Donyelle, I was in the process of researching how to self-publish a book, and I was in the process of writing my book. And Donyelle said, "Well, I'm writing a book as well. I'm writing a book about the story of my son Cody. My son Cody." Right. So you'll tell me, we'll talk about the story of Cody. And so you lost your son, and you wanted to continue his legacy and write a book, but you were stuck at the moment. And so that entire day, I felt like I had been being helped. And so it was my moment then to help somebody else. And I really told you everything that I knew about self-publishing, and we follow up, and I sent you the information, and then and you used that information, and you were able to self-publish your co-authored book that you have.
And then yes, that was all because of you. You told me to go on Amazon. You told me some other sites, and I'm like, wow, this is, oh my God, she gave me so much great information. And then it was coming to pass, and then I just like, I need to ask her this and ask her that. And I kind of reached out, and you always answered for me. You always supported me, even though you didn't even know me. We never broke bread. We never had like this great conversation. You were just inspiring me to continue to move forward. And these are the platforms that you could put your book on, and you guided me through. And so I want to thank you for that, because it would have never gone on Amazon, and I would have never been up all kinds of times of the night trying to edit, re-edit. I didn't know what was going on, but I'm so grateful. Thank you. Because that was a blessing. So go ahead.
I remember I actually broke down crying to you. The first day that we met, I broke down crying. And I was telling you the same story that I just told everyone throughout the day. I was telling you the story, and the fact that I had been helped the entire day, and now I have the opportunity to help someone else, and I didn't know who you were, and I just broke down crying. Remember,
So I remember, because we were out there, we were just like outside, and you were crying, and I was crying, and Tina was still trying to talk about, y'all want to all go to a restaurant and get something to eat, and we're like, we're in a moment, and but it was just like God had shown up and said that, because I was praying before I even went to the conference with Jakes Roberts, and I was like, God, what am I going to get from all this, and what is it going to be about? And I do believe that you were, you know, the blessing that I got, because I would have never had this book in my hand. It would have never been fully published, and it was written, but I didn't know how to go through the publishing aspect of it. And so you blessed me with that. And it was, let me say this to anyone that is on and listening. You know, God sends you what you need. And sometimes we have to stay in position, and we have to be available, and we can't be afraid to ask, and we can't be afraid to let people in our circles, in our hearts. I mean, not in our hearts, because sometimes you have to be a little bit more cautious, but to reach out and just ask a question, just reach out and ask. And so that was so important for me, because like I said, I would have never gone on Amazon. I would have never gone through the process, and you helped me get there. And today I have the book because of you. So I'm forever grateful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now let's talk.
And of course, Shelly, who wrote the book. Let me not go. Shelly Burgess, who wrote the book, helped me write the book. I, poured into her, and she poured back into me. And it was a process. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome, Danielle. And so now I would like to talk a little bit about what you were writing the book about. And I'm very sensitive. Excuse me. I'm very sensitive to this subject now because Mother's Day just passed, and you are a grieving mother. You lost your son, Cody. And I know, in addition to the book, you founded the Cody Young Empowerment Youth Charities. Can you tell us a little bit about Cody, your experience, and then what this book is about?
Well, I lost my son, Cody, in 2017 to senseless gun violence in Baltimore. And out of his loss, I birthed the Cody Young Empowerment Youth Charities. And I also birthed this book, From Graves to Grace. And when God gave me
Show it.
this
Can
title,
you
yeah, I'm going to show
show it?
everyone.
Okay.
When God gave me the title of the book, From Graves to Grace, I didn't even understand it. I was like, from graves to grace, God, like, why would you give me such a title that was so defined, and it didn't have, it just was, to me, it was kind of raw, from graves to grace. But when God began to give me an understanding, and when I began to understand who my son was, and when I began to understand so many mothers are hurting and they don't have closure, I understood. I buried my son, but his grace and his mercy is keeping me going. And it may have been his body that was buried, but the spirit of my son lives on, and the legacy of my son lives on, and the story of my son is going to live on. And so when I realized that that's what graves to grace meant, that he's just not going to be buried, but the grace of God is going to allow his story to continue to captivate young people, and to bring young people forward in their journey. If anybody knew my son, Cody, at the age of 15, had won a combine. And the combine is, you and I talked about this, is when there's a sport event and kids from all over the country come and they work out together. And so he was invited, and he went to San Antonio, Texas. And at that point, they were like, wow, this is a great kid. He has great athletic ability. Let him come to Utah and live. And I'm like, what? Can't go to Utah and live. I mean, I can't move to Utah. Miss Brown, don't worry, we've got him. And so that was the beginning of his journey in football, and being a part of different cultures that he would have never been a part of, because of his talent. And so I thought it was important, because so many stigmatisms were talked about our children. Our children are great. They have great legacies. They are great people. And so I wanted to have more mothers to write books and write stories and talk about the journey with their children, and not just, bury them and move forward. It's not easy. But I think it's necessary. And so this book talks about his journey. It talks about that night, the phone call that I got, the disbelief that this even happened. And and some people know and some people don't. I have a prayer line. It comes on every Tuesday. It's called Turnaround Tuesday. And it's been on for over like 4 or 5 years. And we worship the workday. And well, interestingly, and had you purchased the book, you would know, on that Tuesday, God led me into the story of Naomi and Ruth. And I'm like, really? Why am I reading about a woman that lost both her sons, and then she went to Ruth, and then Ruth took her to Boaz, and didn't understand it? I had no clue. And it talked about how she changed her name to mean tomorrow, which meant bitterness. I had no clue. Well, that was on Tuesday. By the wee hours of July the 1st in 2017, I was experiencing the loss of my son. And I knew in my heart that I just could not let it just be the loss of Cody. I knew that Cody had touched lives all over. He lived in Utah. He lived in Lackawanna, PA. He lived in Atlanta, Georgia for football. He lived in Scottsdale, Arizona. He lived in Washington, D.C. And he played and touched lives, and they touched his life as well. And I knew that I just couldn't leave it right there. And so that's how the book was birthed. But I will say this, from writing this book, and going back and reading the journey, there are a lot of things that 3 years later, I didn't even know happened that night. That's how much of a traumatic experience. And that's how trauma can affect you. You don't sometimes even realize what you did or what you've experienced or what is even going on. Even to this day, day before yesterday, and even yesterday, I had a moment. And I said, God, Cody's really not here. And I'm like, why can't I wrap my mind around that? It's like some days I can't wrap my mind around the fact that my son is gone. And, at one point I thought it had a lot to do with my thinking. But I realized when you deal with trauma, there are a lot of things that you always can't wrap your mind around. And there are a lot of things that you may never get over, but as you started out earlier, you'll get through. And so I know, having the Cody Young Empowerment Youth Charities and helping at-risk youth, and even like loving on mothers and being on this journey with other mothers, it's not my choice. It's not any of our choices. I used to say, Shawnta, I'm a part of a sorority that I never had to be a part of. The initiation was losing my son. And I was like, wow, that's so crazy, because it's not Baltimore. It's not just Baltimore. It's not just Washington, D.C. It's all over the world. Us mothers are all over the world. And so we got to be real, and we got to stand with each other, and we got to fight for our babies, and we got to take a stand, and we got to deal with what is plaguing our communities, and the gun violence, and the mental illness. And we can't turn an eye and keep walking anymore. Somebody's child needs your hug. Somebody's child needs to know that you're invested in them. Somebody's child needs to know that you see entrepreneurship in them, and be an advocate for them. Somebody's child needs us, and we have to start taking that stand and doing something that makes a difference in our communities, in our world. And so that's why I'm determined. Somebody said to me something the other day, and they're like, some of my kids will call me like, Dee, it'll come. Or like a child will come, Miss Dee, it'll come. Don't push it. God will give to Miss Dee, just chill, sit back. It'll come. And I said, no, I want it to come right now. And I'm doing whatever I can in my power to make it come. Because see, God needs some people in the front line that are authentic, that want to see change and movement happening. And this is a time where we have to peel off the layers. And I know for me, it's hard. It is sometimes one of the hardest tasks I have, just to sometimes get up, but just to be able to go out and put a smile on my face when I'm feeling like, why am I even existing? But it is for the purpose of change that will come to pass. Baltimore is not a leftover. We just all need to come together to make it over. And I know we can, but we need authentic people, authentic leadership, authentic love for this city and these children They need us. And our mothers need to come together. This is not something that discriminates. It doesn't discriminate. And so, I just, my prayer and my hope and my desire in my heart is to see us put aside our differences. You got this group of mothers, that group of mothers, you have this organization, that organization. I want us to come together, because if we come together, we are so much more powerful. If we come together, change has to happen, because when two or more come together, guess what happens? It changes the trajectory of things. So yeah. So this book means a lot to me. It is also is a forward in here by Chief Leonard Ham. He was a former Baltimore City Police Commissioner. He's retired. And when I came to him and asked him, would he do the forward, he jumped right in there. And I'm so, so grateful. And I still need to send him a few of these books. Shawnta, when I go and I speak to young people, not even the mothers, and I speak to mothers and young or people, and I pour out, what this journey is about, we cry together. We hug each other. I give this book, I don't always have one, but I tell them, give me your information. I'll send you one. And the impact, I had a little girl, I spoke at an event for Ebony Harvin is also a mother who lost her child to gun violence, and Darlene, who's been with me at the beginning, a lot of other mothers. If I don't say your names, thank you for being on this journey with me. But she invited me to speak at one of her daughter's events. She's a coach for soccer at it's called one of the highest inner city high schools, and I was like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to these kids. But once I said it, the response and the love and wanting the book and wanting to read it and thanking me, that was so important. These kids want it, and they want us to know that we're involved to the extent that we are available and that we are there for them, and we are going to walk them through this journey, and we are going to be a part of their lives. And guess what? Every squeegee child I go to, they're like, Miss Dee, you good? I'm good.
No, really quick for those, I have
I'm talking on.
No, it's okay. So in our audience, I want to read the chats, but then also you mentioned the squeegee boys, and a lot of people don't know what that means if they're not living in Baltimore. Could you please explain?
So they're a group of young men and women now, because I've had some young ladies like Miss Brown, I can do it too. So young ladies that generally are young men that are on the corners, and they are, with a squeegee, washing down your windows. And they do it for, for money. They do
a lot of them are homeless.
A lot of them are homeless. A lot of them are even been approached. I spoke to some of them. You'd be surprised how a lot of them been approached with gang violence. And man, you get a part of this gang, you don't have to be on these corners. And it hurts me, because they're not out here doing anything to hurt someone. They're authentically trying to do something to create, put money in their pockets. And for me, it's becoming an entrepreneur without even knowing that you're an entrepreneur. And so what I do now is I keep money, ones or five, whatever it is, and I engage them in conversation. You in school? What you do today? What you do today? Tell me something what you did. And they stop and they love it. And the important thing about that now is that, and I thank God there are organizations that are now beginning to see the importance of investing in them and building relationships and and seeing the entrepreneurship abilities that these young men have and women, and beginning to give them jobs. But what I loved about it is that they opened up, they talked to me, and then they made sure I was protected. So every time I go, they're like, Miss Dee, you good? You good, Miss Dee? And I'm like, I'm good. And I give it to them. And I can see that they are so much more appreciative of someone being authentic and just being genuine and having a conversation than someone criticizing them for what they're doing. One young man came up to me, had on a suit. I said, why are you out here with a suit on? He said, I'm just out here because I got the job and I want to just help he said, my other friends that know, man, you're going to get a job too. So I just come out here. I support them. Sometimes I come out here and give them some of my check and I'm like, oh, wow. I love it. I love
Yes,
it.
I love it too. And let's go
Yes.
into the comments really quick. So we have a few people that have responded. And so when you were speaking, Peggy Frank says, I hear you. Shalonda Connor said amen. And Peggy says that she's inspired. And when you were talking about when you're processing your emotions and your feelings about Cody, Latoya Watry, who's also my cousin, and she lost her nephew to gun violence, but it was more than just her nephew. It was a son to her. And when you were speaking, she says, I know exactly what you're experiencing. And she says, I struggle every day to wrap my mind around losing my nephew, Guy. It's unreal. It's unreal, sad, painful, and just traumatizing. And then Jennifer Travis, and she says, this is really helpful and touching, and why sometimes it takes so long and hard to finish your book that is so dear to you, and know what we have to push ourselves to get this out. And then Shalonda, she was just encouraging you, and she said, speak it. And then Chris Lomax, my cousin, and she says, thanks for sharing your story. I'm truly inspired. And then Peggy Franks wants to know where she can get your book. And so from my understanding, it's available on Amazon.com, correct?
It is. It is available on Amazon. If you reach out to me and DM me, I can also get you a copy of the book. I can send it to you. I don't charge shipping and handling certain things. I work with my people. So if you want to DM me, that's fine. But it's also Amazon.
Okay, well. Amazon, so what I'll do is after this recording, I'll make sure to post your information. And for a lot of you, I have already I posted this on Facebook Live, and I tagged Donyelle. And so you can contact her through that way as well. But I'll make sure. And so for those of you who are watching this recording after this live discussion, I'll make sure that it's posted on YouTube. This will be live on YouTube as well. So for those of you who haven't, visit my YouTube channel. Just search Shawnta Jackson and you can subscribe. And I hope to continue conversations like this where I have different life experiences, and I've met and I know a lot of different people. And a lot of different people I know, they have different expertise as well. And so, Donyelle, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about, let's briefly talk about your foundation and the work that you're doing. In addition, I don't know if this is related to your foundation or not. I see you giving back a lot during COVID-19. I've seen you with others distribute food and other commodities and different things like that. So is that tied to your foundation?
That was not tied to my foundation. So my belief in giving and supporting other foundations and organizations is to show up, support each other. So when one of the mothers said that they would be doing it, I said, can I join you? Can I join your organization? Can I begin to pass out some of the food and things that you're doing in your community? Can I be a part of that as well? So, and that's when I was saying about not looking at it like this is mine and that's yours and that's your territory, or this is the east side or that's the west side or whatever. We are each other's brother's keeper. We've got to help each other and begin to open up doors with each other. So the mother reached out to me and I said, I would love to jump in there and pass it out with you. And so, yeah, that's how I got involved in that movement about a month or so ago, when I did the Beautifying Baltimore. I do something called Beautifying Baltimore, which it would have taken off a lot more this past year, but we just had some hiccups along the way. But I tried to do, which I did a memorial grave site for my son at the gas station, and it was built with flowers in his name to keep his legacy and memory going. And I built that relationship there with that gas station, which took a whole lot of prayers. Tell me about. I had to do that.
Yes. Tell me about the Cody Young Empowerment Youth Charities.
So the Cody Young Empowerment Youth Charities is our mission and our vision is to reach our at-risk youth and begin to work with them in terms of mentorship and in terms of our so we have the Loyalty Over Royalty program. We have a program called the Legacy program, and we work with them in developing them to become great entrepreneurs. We develop with them to have the mentorship programs, and that they're able to come to us in time if they have a need or if they have a question to ask. We develop that relationship hands-on. We're working on something called the Legacy program because Cody played football in different states and all over, in which we will be able to build our own combines, have the youth to come in that are at risk, and we would go with them from the time they come in to the time they graduate and they go on to college, to be just a leading hand to them. A lot of children and that have been affected by gun violence, either the family members of children that like my son, my daughter, and my grandson, you got to have resources to pull them through that. And I think that we don't recognize that there is a lot of pain and trauma that our children are dealing with, and a lot of things that the temptations that are out there. So we try to show up to be more active in terms of mentorship and driving them to become great entrepreneurs. If you read the book, you'll know that Cody's focus, I mean, Cody loved football, but his focus was being an entrepreneur everywhere along the way. Even down to bail bondsman. He helped one of his best friend's dads in the business. He loved becoming his own self. And I think that a lot of these young men and women, and especially these young men, need to know that they can become great entrepreneurs and they are going to be great at whatever they choose to do. So
Okay.
that's what we do.
Thank you. And I would like to volunteer. So it's live. Yeah. So what I would like to do is come in and maybe do some workshops and just I'm learning as I go. I'm not a guru on entrepreneurship, but I do have two businesses, and I'd like to support and talk to the youth.
We would love. Thank you. Thank you.
So I mentioned earlier when we were speaking that you are also a licensed insurance agent in Maryland. And because you are a licensed agent, I can kind of pick your brain and I can get information from you. And it's legal for you and ethical to get that information and for our listeners. And so to entice people.
Before we go any further, I just want to talk about something called the Loyalty Over Royalty program for 2 seconds.
Okay.
And I wear this band. I have not taken it off since 2017. I bathe with it. I put on a new one. I keep the one on. But the Loyalty Over Royalty program was birthed out of Cody's belief in being loyal to those that he loved and not dealing with my son was not materialistic, and he was not a man that had a young man that had a value in what he had on, but a value in who he loved. And I say that because a part of one of my programs is to ask your kids, and I want some of you all to ask your children and your children's friends, God forbid, anything happened to them, or, just in general, who are their first 5 picks? Who would they call on in time of need? Do they have a first 5 pick? Who do they see as a person that they can really depend on and call on if they have something they're going through? I need you parents, and I need you out there, ask your children the question, and I promise you some of the answers will blow your mind.
Thank you for that. And actually, I'm going to ask my son as soon as this is over.
Yeah.
I have an idea about 3.
But who are the other 2?
Right. So.
And we can help them learn who the other 2 are. Sometimes we need to take that initial step to say, this person is available or that person's available, it opens up doors to them, or understanding that they're not in this alone. So okay.
Yeah. Thank you. And so back to the comments before we start talking about building generational wealth through life insurance. Danielle, you know, you're fine. You're fine. I see you, baby. Smile. She had that face. You were shocked. Okay, so we have Cynthia Fowler. She's joining in from YouTube, and Cynthia says, and this is my cousin as well. Cynthia says, Danielle, thank you for sharing your son's story. What an awesome way to keep Cody's legacy alive. He would be honored. And Cynthia also says, as a mother of 4 adult children, 3 of which are young men, thank you for inspiring.
Let me apologize. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I lost you.
Can you hear me?
To me. Can you unmute your mic, perhaps?
Not muted. One moment. Can you all hear me? And I'm typing this in the chat box and for YouTube. Can you all hear me? Okay. Oh, so no, yeah. So they can hear me. You can't hear me. So why don't you do this? So what I'll do, everyone, is I'll disconnect Danielle. Join back in, Danielle. And so I disconnected her, and she'll come back in. But that was very inspiring, and I don't know if you all had joined the conversation at the very beginning or not. But Danielle and we met in Baltimore on the street at a parking meter, and I was in the process of researching my book, and she was in the process of researching how to self-publish her book, and I was a little bit more knowledgeable. I did a little bit more research, and I was really down that day, and I had the opportunity to help her and to give her advice, and that's how we initially connected. And so you just never know who you are going to meet and what impact you'll have in each other's lives. And I'm just honored to know her. And let's see, she's coming back in. You're back in. Hey, good. Can you hear me?
I can't.
Okay, it's okay.
And I did what I was supposed to do.
You did.
It knocked me out.
You can't hear me, y'all. It was a great conversation.
I'll come back. I love you all. Thank you. I'll come back and we can talk about the insurance business. I have a lot of great information that I would like to discuss and talk about dealing with this business.
We can talk about it. I don't know. Let's see if she can get the visual.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So quickly, I am a licensed insurance agent, health and life insurance agent. And one thing that I find that a lot of people don't do is called a financial analysis, where we talk about those things that are necessary to understand before we go into purchasing insurance. There are several types of insurance. There's term insurance, there's whole life insurance, there's universal life insurance. And those are the three types of insurance I kind of really, if you're new to becoming in insurance and becoming familiar with insurance, those are the 3 I kind of talk to you about. The most important one to me is whole life, because it's for the life of you. And that money that you're investing into whole life builds money. So at a time like this, when we're in a pandemic, you could have gone back to your policy, taken the money out of there to use forever, whatever you want to use it for. Yes, it may cost a tidbit more, but it's so well worth it. A term insurance policy is only for the term you purchase it for. So let's give you an example. I purchased one many years ago for a little over $400,000. I did not know that the person that wrote it for 10 years. So it was great. I was only paying $100 some a month. Did the test. Oh my God, I got all this insurance. Nothing happened to me in 10 years. You know what happens? The policy then is null and void. Now, some people says, well, you could have gone in and turned it from a term policy into whole life. The difference in doing that is it's no longer going to be $120 a month. It can go up to $400 to $500. You want to start with a whole life policy, have a whole life policy. It lasts for the life of you. The younger you do it, the less it costs, the more money you're going to build into the policy. There's some policies. I have people to ask me, can I get a policy if my loved one has cancer? There are policies now for HIV. There are policies now for people that have pre-existing conditions. The difference in those policies are called guaranteed issue. You're going to pay a little bit more. But wouldn't you rather pay a little bit more now than have to pay at the time that you lose your child or your loved one? And for me, I keep on saying it, but when you lose someone you love so much, wouldn't you rather have that policy that all you have to do is say, here, I don't want to deal with the GoFundMe, and I don't want to deal with not having what I need to properly bury or deal with the loss of my loved one. And I find that we wait too long to really understand that life insurance is necessary. It's necessary. There's no other way you look at it. The inevitable is going to happen. We know the inevitable is going to happen. God just does not place us here forever. So I always go with that understanding about whole life. Let's just say that you're on a fixed income. Okay, do a 20-year, a 30-year term. I get it. That's 20, 30 years. So by that time, you could be in a better position to actually take and maybe convert a portion of that into a whole life and then have that for the life of you. The financial analysis is because most people don't know your life insurance policy, God forbid anything happens, should be something that pays off your home so that your loved ones can keep that home in their family forever. It should be something that will pay off some of the things that you need. Most people don't even know what the cost of a funeral is. It's amazing that people don't know, but they don't. To dig the ground is between $2,300 to $2,500. They'll say, "Oh, well, I'll go and get and it's becoming very common now. Oh gosh, and I can't get it out. Where you actually, it's not coming to me. Where you're not burying the individual in ground, but you're actually doing where ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It's not coming to me right now.
Cremation.
Say that again.
Cremation. Oh, you can hear me now?
Cremation.
Oh, wow.
Cremation.
I'm so glad you can
Thank
hear
you.
me.
Cremation now may start at $800. Could go up to $2,000. They don't understand you're paying for that body now to get from the hospital to the crematorial services. That's another $500-$600. So we have to understand and have things in order, God forbid, when this happens. Another thing that I like to talk quickly about, and this is something that I also have been in the family planning business or the family planning where it's Cumberland Memorial Park Cemetery, where I understand the need of a living will. Not too many of us understand a will, but I want to take you through just a part of this book. All of these things here should be answered, God forbid, if you lose a loved one.
Can't see it. So really quick, what is a living will? Oh, she can't hear me, so you can't hear me.
I still can't hear you. I just want to go through it, and
Okay.
I will come back with Shawnta, and we can further engage in the conversation because I'm very passionate about this. Because I will say this to you all. Had my parents not had certain life insurance policies for my kids so that when they got older, they could have money for college, that's how we looked at it. We not looked at a policy to bury our children.
So what I'm gonna do is give everyone who's watching
sorry.
physical cue that we're going to go for about 5
You
more
have to look
minutes.
at life insurance differently.
So we have 5 more minutes.
We got 5 minutes. So
Mhm.
quickly, and I don't want to get into that conversation, but this is called a living will. Please, please, please have a living will done. Have a living will done. There's so many things that happen at that final hour that no one actually is there having paperwork, know what you want to have done, understand. People don't even know where people's bank accounts are. So do you see this page? This tells your loved one, your child, your husband, these are the bank accounts that I have. This is what I have in it. You don't have to give this to them right away, but you need this so that if you know that something is going on, or that something may go on with you, because the inevitable will happen, have this somewhere that they can get to, God forbid anything that happens to you. It talks about the policies. Some people don't even know what policies that they have. Most people don't know. They think their cousins, uncle, aunts had the policy, but they don't know that they didn't even pay on it. The policy's lapsed. There's no longer a policy in effect. Do what you have to do to make sure that your loved ones are not left without having the security of knowing you're leaving something for them. Quickly, have their social security information, their history information, know where they want to be buried. Most people don't know that. And at the end, I always say, if you're elderly or if you are even at our age, leave a note letting your loved ones know that you do love them and you do care and you do appreciate who they are, and be in a position that they can be able to have something to reference back to. But life insurance is something that I think we have misunderstood in our communities, and we got to get with it. We got to get a clear understanding. It is not for the death of you. Life insurance is for the life of you. And right now in this pandemic, you could go take money out of your policies, like a few of my clients have done. And I'm not talking about $100, $200. I ain't talking about 1,000. I'm not talking about 5,000. I'm talking about some money. And they are living off of it now. Why? Because they invested in a life insurance policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle, and thanks for everyone for joining. And so, Monica Prim, you asked what a living will is. I'm hoping that Danielle was able to respond to your question. But the document that she showed, you can go online. And a lot of our health insurance companies, sometimes they're sending out the policies, and and in addition to a living will, a medical directive. If you were to become sick, what are your wishes? If you were not able to make decisions for yourself, who will be making these decisions for you? Do you want to be in a state where you're on life support or not? Are you an organ donor? Different things like that. And so I just pulled it up on my phone really quick. A quick definition. A living will, a written statement detailing a person's desires regarding their medical treatment in circumstances in which they are no longer able to express informed consent, especially an advanced directive. And so that was something that I explained. And then there's so yeah, you can go online. A lot of and also within your state, a lot of your whatever so that's a living will, but then you have just a regular will, and then there's trust. There's a lot of different things, but the idea for today's conversation is to kind of get you to think about that. And then also, when you're not around, how can you take care of your loved ones and make sure that they're not only that they're taken care of, but that you're not being a burden or causing extra stress on them. Give them time to be able to grieve and mourn you without having all the worry and the responsibilities that you left behind. Personally for me, and then as Danielle said, this is not something that, if you don't feel comfortable sharing it in advance with them, then that's okay, but make it so that they are able to find it. So for example, personally for me, I know that if something happens, I'll just use my father for example. I know if something happens, I know where to go to access information, even though I don't know what all of that information is at this moment. what it details, I know where to access it if something happens to him. And so so that's what the conversation is about, is just encouraging that conversation. Thank you all. And Belinda Norwood, my mother, chimed in. She says, I'm so proud of you. Me and Rosalind are watching. Hi, Rosalind, that's my godmom. I'm praying for Donyelle. Can't wait to meet her and give her a hug. Shalonda says, thank you. Thank you, Shalonda, for tuning in. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And during our next conversation, I'm always having exploratory conversations with individuals about what we should talk about next. But during our next conversation, I'll bring in a gentleman who wrote a book, 5 Steps to Manhood. And I might have gotten the title wrong because I don't have it in front of me, but we'll talk a little bit about that and what that means. And so I hope to see you in next week. Thank you so much. Have a great day.